Now, I'm sure most of you guys have heard about the Ariel School UFO incident. It is an infamous case, a famous case. It is one of these almost landmark UFO cases that people put forward when it comes to something that can't be explained or debunked. In today's video, I want to look at that incident. I want to break it down for you guys and raise a whole bunch of questions, because in a nutshell, what I just said is not wrong. It can't be debunked because I wasn't there. There's no video. We have loads of witness reports that to an extent contradict each other, but there's nothing tangible to go on here. So there is no way for me to conclusively say, this is what it was. The Ariel School incident is now debunked. But what I can do is offer you guys a whole bunch of circumstantial evidence of stuff that happened around it that we know that really puts the authenticity of this sighting and event into question. And that's what I want to do in today's video. So I'm going to raise a whole bunch of questions to you guys, and I'm going to try to address all these key big questions, right, that are there, that believers in the Ariel School incident have or may have. Like, for example, how about the interviews with the witnesses who are now adults, right? At the time they were children, in the 90s, now they're adults. Some of them stick to their story. They have been interviewed and they say, I stick to exactly what I described as a kid. This is what I saw. We're going to talk about that. Other questions as well, like, did the kids know about UFOs? That's a big question. Did these children know, being more in a rural area in the southern part of Africa, were they aware of the pop cultural phenomenon that is UFOs at the time? We're going to answer all these questions, but we have to go through it one by one. Now, I wanted to start this video off by showing you guys this beautiful witness video here, okay? It's a compilation of all kinds of witness statements from these children at the time talking about what they saw. And I'm going to play it here, but I can't play it with sound because I checked it and the audio is copyrighted, okay? So I cannot play the audio for you guys. Now, I'm going to summarize this clip for you guys. Again, it's a whole bunch of children telling their stories. We see them. We see the circumstances in which they are being interviewed. We see sometimes how the guy who interviews them asks certain questions. We get a pretty good idea of how these interviews were conducted. But it is also obvious that quite a lot of these kids contradict themselves. Right? Someone's like, oh yeah, the eyes were big and black and round. The others are like, oh no, the eyes were like warped around the head like this. And the next one describes it. You can see it here. So it's like there are loads of small contradictions. It's not that you have, I think it was around 60 kids. But I do want to start by giving you guys a little bit of a summary of the actual incident, because I always assume that everyone knows the story. A lot of you guys may not. So let me give you a summary. This is like a short write-up, which summarizes it really well. And this is on a website called $3 Kit. Okay, and I recommend everyone to go there. Check out $3 Kit. They cover loads of stories. For example, the Westall case as well, the Travis Walton case, the Nazca mummies, the telepathy tapes. There's a lot on this website. They're doing great work. They're doing such a great job at researching it, giving context to cases. And they give a little bit of a summary here of the Ariel School incident that happened again in 1994 in Ruwa, Zimbabwe. Now, here's the summary. During morning recess at Ariel Primary School, which is a private school, 1991, it has been established, dozens of children witnessed a UFO landing about 100 meters from their playground. Two small beings with huge eyes emerged, dressed in black. They ran up and down in slow motion while the children watched in awe amid spreading panic. Captivating several children with their stare, the creatures transmitted telepathic messages about the environment. No adults were at the playground to witness the event. When told by teachers to draw what they had seen, the children all drew pretty much exactly the same. Harvard psychiatrist Dr. John Mack interviewed a dozen of the children and declared they were not lying, and that what they had experienced was real. So there you have it. In a nutshell, that is the Ariel School incident. The Wikipedia page says that 62 children saw the incident, but there's a few inconsistencies and contradicting aspects to this story that I want to highlight to you guys that often don't get highlighted in UFO documentaries and so on, where they would talk about this specific incident. Like, for example, the very early reports of these children were describing fairly mundane things. Also interesting, in the beginning, like just a day or hours after the incident, the reports of what the kids saw differed more significantly, and then as the days passed, it seemed like all the stories somewhat aligned into one subconsciously agreed narrative that most of the children told. There are still inconsistencies, especially when it comes to what the kids describe and what they draw, but witnesses and teachers at the time have described that some of these objects that were described by the kids were at the time were clearly inspired, or drawing inspiration from aliens and alien content in popular culture. Now then, over the following weeks and days, that story changed, and it seemed like details were added to it that tried to make it more interesting, more relevant, more extraordinary and alien. The psychiatrist, Dr. John Mack, that I mentioned a minute ago, arrived 2.5 months later after the initial incident to interview these children. 2.5 months later. That's a very, very long time. He but he interviewed, I think, 12 children. I think I said this earlier, when overall there were over 60. He also, at that time, uncovered memories of telepathic messages from three children of the 12 that he interviewed, which prior to these interviews had never been mentioned before, right? That none of these children ever spoke about this telepathic message about the environment they received until Dr. John Mack arrived there and interviewed them, which, to be honest, raises serious questions about how these interviews were conducted and whether they followed rules of protocol and so on that you need to follow when you're interviewing children. We'll get to that later on in this video. But first I want to focus on this big question whether these children knew that UFOs exist in the pop culture, that it's a thing in science fiction and so on, and on TV potentially, because it's an argument that people who believe in the case often make, and they say no, in rural Africa where they were based, it was impossible in the mid-90s to even know that the UFO phenomenon exists. Well, that's not true, okay? Because, like, for example, 2 days before this incident happened, there was a Zenit 2 rocket that re-entered above that area into the atmosphere, leaving a big trail, looking like a comet and raising questions about aliens and UFOs, as it always is, right? This Zenit 2 rocket was a part of the Cosmos 2290 satellite launch. There's also a beautiful, lengthy Twitter thread by Charlie Weiser, who I think is somehow involved with the $3 Kid website. I don't know, I don't want to draw this connection, but I think he's part of this as well. And he breaks down in excruciating detail here in this Twitter thread with interviews and references why these kids knew what a UFO is and why actually specifically during this time it was relevant and they were all aware. Like, for example, here's a little newspaper clipping which reads, some of the Stanford Force 10-year-olds had a discussion earlier that week in one of their general discussion classes about UFOs. So it states that they were actually discussing UFOs in class. Why not, right? Like, it's an interesting story, fun thing to discuss with children. I thought it was an alien, and then I thought maybe it was the gardener, is a quote from Liesel, one of the witnesses. Why do you think it was actually a UFO and possibly a spaceman? Asked the BBC. It was just because everyone was saying that they were UFOs, says Emily and someone else. Did you know about UFOs? Yes. Okay, so these are just takeouts from some of these interviews, in this case with BBC, 4 days after the event, where they asked exactly this question, and a lot of them confirmed that they did know what UFOs were. Also, according to an article by Brian Dunning, the media in Zimbabwe were first alerted to the Ariel School story by a phone call to a local radio station, which is ZBC Radio, which had actually been calling for UFO stories that week. So there's been this engagement thing going on this radio station where they call out, share your UFO stories with me, with us, call in. Again, hinting to the idea that at the time there was a little bit of a UFO fever thing going on in the area. All these stories, it all came together and created this collective UFO fever that was absolutely present at the time and that the kids absolutely knew about, okay? I'll link this thread here where Charlie Weiser breaks this down, why the kids knew about it, as well as some of the other things I mentioned earlier, like, for example, the interview video, in the description underneath. So you can go watch them at their full length yourself, because this is like an almost 5-minute video. I can't watch that in the video at full length. But I do think what this Charlie Weiser thread establishes is the kids knew about UFOs and aliens were a subject in this area at the time. And beyond other explanations that we're going to talk about in the end of the video, it also somewhat raises the possibility that the whole incident was actually just the result of like a deliberate prank, where local people have maybe dressed up as aliens and pranked the school children to spook them, maybe for fun, maybe in hopes to get some money out of it. Tying into the collective UFO stories that were floating around at the time, tying into that radio station that asks for stories, you know, this is how you spawn a story, you dress up, you give these kids a good spook, and one of them is gonna rip on, then they're gonna call in and your story becomes pop culture. I'm not saying that's the only and ultimate explanation, but that definitely is a possibility that this was an intentional prank, or maybe that some of the older kids at the same school dressed up to spook the younger ones. That would potentially also explain the height of the described aliens, because they did describe them to be more like kids' heights rather than adult heights. And it has to be noted that there was a tuck shop close by to the sighting, a little shop where all the kids would go and whatever, buy candy or whatever they would buy there. But the lady who owns the shop, she had the strong suspicion, and expressed that in interviews as well, that they were making it up. that these kids were like playing with this pop culture thing of UFOs going on at the moment, that they were just made it up. And then it became the self-fulfilling prophecy almost, right? A thing that becomes bigger and bigger as it grows. And it also ties back to what I said in the very beginning, that the story the children told in the beginning was quite mundane and non-significant. And then as it went on for longer, they extrapolated it and added more detail that made it more alien and more special and extraordinary. But there's one more thing that I forgot to mention earlier that I want to bring forward, and I should have probably highlighted this earlier in this video, and that is an actual map of the event, okay? We have an actual map here. I'm putting it on screen. Now, this here is Ariel Primary School, so you get an idea of how it looks. This here seems to be the backyard, the playground, whatever, where the kids would spend their time during recess. Over here's the tuck shop. Right? I spoke about earlier the tuck shop owner who says, I think the kids all made it up. That was her opinion. The UFO, and this is very interesting, that they saw was here, bro. Look how far this is. Originally, in the introduction I read in the beginning, in the summary, it said it was about 100 meters away. Well, turns out it wasn't. If you can believe this report and the map, it's more like 220 meters or 243 yards. That is a long ways away, bro. Now, some of the kids may have been even closer. Some of them may be down here on this sports ground or whatever, so they're maybe 150 meters close to it. But dude, it's hidden in the trees. It's 220 meters away, or let it be 200 meters, even 180 meters. It's a far distance. And it adds another layer of questions to this whole thing, because I'm just not sure that these kids from this distance, over 200 meters, can see really fine details, like the shape of the eyes. Is this a person wearing a suit or something extraordinary? If they would have been 50 meters close to it, maybe. But 200, more than 200 meters? I don't know, man. This also, to me, in my head personally, plays into the idea that they saw something. And again, we spoke about it being a prank potentially earlier, right? We spoke about it being maybe some kind of military operation. Maybe they did land a helicopter somewhere back here. The kids didn't see it land or whatever. But here are these people wearing black hazmat suits. Who knows what they're doing, but it could be something like this. And if you're this far away, can you really tell the difference as a sixth grader between a person wearing a black suit, a hazmat suit, or an alien? Maybe they can. Maybe I'm underestimating their ability to read and interpret events. But this is another aspect that plays into it that really makes me question this case. And I'm just like, there are so many red flags here. Now we're going to look at a bunch of drawings that these kids made about what they saw. And it has to be said that most of these drawings, some not, but most of them were made 3 days after their initial sighting. That was like late in the week. And then I think the weekend happened. And on Monday, they were asked to produce drawings of the sighting that they had. Now, it has to be mentioned that on that weekend, there was a whole bunch of alien and UFO content available on TV that these kids may have seen. Now, I can't prove that they did watch it, but it is a fact that at that time, on that specific weekend, there were various programs across the TV stations that spoke about aliens and UFOs. So that goes into it as well. Now let's look at some of these drawings, okay, that these kids produced. Here we have a drawing of the alien creature by Claire R, who is grade 6 at the time. Claire is showing the alleged alien as a black, fully black covered creature, including the hands, right, making it very clear there. She painted some kind of yellow halo around it. I don't know if that implies that it glows. I couldn't see the eyes, the nose, or the mouth. It was just black, like a piece of paper, which directly contradicts some of the reports in the video I put in the description with the interviews, where some kids say I clearly could see the eyes. Daniel M, grade 7, is drawing the spaceship. Pretty good drawing. I like this. Well done, Daniel. So he draws this somewhat classic saucer-shaped looking disc, it seems like, that sat between the trees, and you can see the aliens, the alleged aliens, sitting on top of it. Here's a painting from someone called Fungi M, and it looks very different, right? If you look at these two paintings next to each other, that's not the... It seems like it's not the same object, right? This almost looks like these World War II Foo Fighter UFOs, where we have images and renderings of that people reported. While that one, like I said, looks more like a classic disc or something oval-shaped, almost tic-tac shaped. Now, someone on the Bad UFOs blog pointed out that the object you see here seems to be somewhat inspired and a close match with the spaceship shown from the Invaders TV show from 1967 to 1968. And it is true. I mean, these are two very similar looking spaceships, but then again, many UFO sightings and UFO images seem to be very close to this and seem to reference an object that's similar to that. Here's another drawing, I think from Fungi, of the creature itself. It looks like a potato sack with an alien head on top, and I'm not trying to diminish these kids' drawings, okay? These are great drawings, but obviously they're children, okay? They're children, so they struggle to articulate, even adults struggle to articulate what they saw on paper, right? And bring it to life in a somewhat representative sketch of what it actually was, what they saw. So good job, kids, but it's funny how this looks, right? It looks like some kind of sausage with a head. Here's Liesl P's sketches, grade 6. Now she's drawing more of what almost looks like a bowl, a half semicircle, which, as people point out, is somewhat similar to the Jupiter 2 spaceship from Lost in Space, also 1965 to 1968. There it is, and you can see the similarities. The window on the side, the door in the center, you know what I mean? There are some similarities, maybe some kind of antenna structure up here. Also note the aliens Liesl drew here, somewhat different from the aliens that the other kid drew. This one's wearing a suit. It's not all black. It has a belt. But one thing, for example, this drawing and the other drawing by Liesl have in common is that they show human proportions. Okay, they show something that has the same body as a human, with arms and legs, a torso, a head. And sure, you can say, yeah, because that's how aliens look, you idiot. Aliens have also arms. Don't you know that, monkey? Well, they do, but look at the proportions, especially of Claire's drawing here. Like, these are human proportions. It's not like little giant-headed gray aliens. This looks like a drawing of a human person in a black suit. And some of these ones implying the suit as well. So I'm like, okay. Seems like we're getting somewhere here. But you get these drawings here. Here is Liesl, a picture of her making these drawings. You can see another one. This is also Liesl drawing it. So all these UFOs that look like a bowl, like a semicircle, like a half sphere, or whatever you want to call it, they all come from Liesl. Then here's Emily B, grade 7 as well. Now she draws something different. Look, like it's a UFO with wheels or something. Big window up here, and then like a ring going around it, right? Like Saturn or something, like the rings around Saturn. We've seen UFOs like that before. It is more the classic shape. It goes a bit more into the sports model direction, right? Like the wings that kind of sit around it, very much like a saucer. Here's another one that she did for Mac while he was interviewing her. But you can see it's like, this is very different. Also the alien she's drawing here, like what's up with that? That alien has long hair, big black eyes, mouth not seen properly. That's something others reported too. Long black hair. None of the others, as far as I'm aware, have reported long black hair on these aliens. But then again, you look at some of these and at least one of them seemed to have black hair. Okay, maybe I missed that earlier. Okay, maybe it did have long black hair. It's just, this kid is drawing it very prominently. It's interesting. Then here we have Oriana F, also drawing long hair, and this alien is wearing a polka dot suit, it seems like. And the alien is also sitting on the UFO. Some other kids reported that too, right? The aliens were on top of their UFO and their craft. But the UFO here looks more like a proper sphere, a full sphere, right? Like an apple or something. With a bunch of holes, but you can see how these reports and drawings heavily contradict each other. Here's another drawing from a boy. You see this looks so different again, this elongated object with the dome on top. This one is like a proper disc. That one, that Emma draws, somewhat similar to what we see here that the boy drew. So it's not that they are all completely different. There are some similarities between some of them. But if you look at it in the bigger picture, these witness reports do not align. They do not align, okay? I didn't have a silver crayon, says Camellia, so I did it in yellow. A silver round thing and 3 in the sky and 3 black objects running around it. They had big eyes like cats and they were really thin and tall. So here they were really tall. Other kids reported they were the size of children. And what's up with the other 3 objects in the sky and other black objects running around? And like, what? Nobody else reported that. She's drawing them as big circles, like just yellows, or she describes it as silver circles in the sky that looked like this. So here's Emily drawing kind of the landing bridge that we get in Close Encounters and many other movies as well. Very nice expressive painting here from Robin. I love this. Okay, beautiful line work, but again, somewhat different. Somewhat in line with some of the designs we previously saw, but you see they differ so much. And look at this one. Here's another one. Between the trees, right? That is something that a lot of them show. They show the object kind of sitting in between the trees. Here's another one. Now, I mean, this is my opinion, right? I look through these drawings and I'm like, yeah, they are all significantly different. I get it that these are children, but man, I can't look through these and say, yeah, all these children clearly saw the same thing. Look at how this one draws this alien. Again, the long hair, that's fair. Okay, that was my error. I'm embarrassed. But again, it looks so different. Like, what is this? You know, there's such a big variety. This looks like a toilet roll, right? Like a toilet roll with 2 arms or legs coming out left and right. So different from all the other designs. It's like, it seems like these kids are making it up. There are so many variations in the design of the aliens, in the design of the craft, what it did, how it looked, did it lift up, what happened? It differs vastly. that is a red flag. That's not good. And again, I'll link this page. I didn't even get through all the drawings. There are so many. I'll link this page. This is all part of the $3 kit website down in the description, so you can go check it out yourself. Take your own time. Go through these drawings. Beautiful drawings here. Really, really nice. Just not very consistent in many ways. But let's talk about what I teased in the beginning. I briefly showed the interview and I showed how Dr. John Mack interviewed some of these children. Now you have to understand, there are certain rules and frameworks in place that you have to follow when you interview children. If you want honest and uninfluenced results, right? If you want these children to really describe to you uninfluenced what they saw, there are sets of rules. There's a framework. You have to follow it. That methodology in the interview with the children in this particular case from Dr. John Mack and others was not followed. There's 2 beautiful blog posts about this incident by a man called Gil Fernandez. It is in Spanish, I assume Spanish or Portuguese, the original website, but you can translate it to English by just clicking on it and saying translate to English. I'll link it down in the description as well. This man has a PhD in cognitive psychology, and he breaks down the psychology and his thoughts around this incident and what he thinks may have happened. He's giving great examples, like, for example, this helicopter that was used at the time in the area and how it resembles some of the drawings. But I don't want to go into this now. I'm just saying these blog posts, which I'm again both linking down in the description, they are both treasure troves about this incident as well, and I recommend everyone to go check those out. But this guy describes how this methodology of interviewing children was not followed. So he says, criminologists and psychologists already recommend 2 main methodological criteria regarding the interview with children that Cynthia Hind does not respect. Cynthia Hind, presumably another interviewer there next to John Mack. These 2 points of criteria are the individual interview and the favoring free narration. Free narration is not respected. In this particular case, this person claims. The interviewer, the police investigator, or the practitioner must always question the child on his memory and his recall of the event by letting the child deliver his testimony. That is something that we see in police interrogation as well. You can't, as the investigator, lead the witness. You can't say, what about the eyes? Were the eyes big? Were they black? I mean, how big, you're guiding what the witness might say. You need to let the witness, and this is even more important with children and their fantastical imagination, you need to let them say what they want to say and what they believe they saw, and guide them in no shape or form. And that didn't happen here. In fact, in the interview video I shared at the beginning, you can see it. You can see John Mack talking to some of the kids, and he's literally sitting there, and the kid's giving his testimony. He's like, what about the eyes? Did you see was there anything about the eyes? Oh yeah, the eyes, they were big. I saw it too, right? And he's doing these things that when it comes to proper interview methodology of children is just not ideal. It's not ideal. The interview sessions are collective and not individual is another aspect, and you can see this in the video I linked in the description as well. The children are not interviewed individually in a closed room. They're standing in crowds, they're standing in rows of 4 or 5 children and giving testimony, interjecting each other and completing each other's sentences almost, which is really not a good way of doing something like this, because kids will hear something, oh, he said that, yeah, and then they repeat that somewhere else. Unfortunately, that's just how kids work. So I really recommend you to read up on this blog yourself. Even sometimes the grammar is messed up because it is a bad translation from Spanish or Portuguese into English, but you can read it, and this PhD in cognitive psychology gives a lot of context to what happened that day and how these dynamics work between children, where one child claims something, another child picks it up, then another child saw something, they say it, everyone heard it, they take it on board, and now the story is planted. It becomes like this tame version of mass hysteria. You know what I mean? Like, it's all these kids ran inside the school. They were hysteric about what they just saw. And obviously this is just a theory, right? But the idea of these kids kind of almost amplifying each other's ideas of what they saw to the point where they actually believe they saw it is not unthinkable. And it happened in the past as well. I give you one example. I don't know if you heard about this, but there's an event that took place. It is called the Miracle of the Sun. This happened in 1917. It happened in Fatima, Portugal. Beautiful. Look at this. In response to a prophecy made by 3 shepherd children, Lucia Santos, the prophecy was that the Virgin Mary would appear and perform miracles on that date. Newspapers published testimony from witnesses who said that they had seen extraordinary solar activity, such as the sun appearing to dance, or zigzagging through the sky, advance towards the Earth, or emit multicolored light and radiant colors. According to these reports, the event lasted approximately 10 minutes. It was a big thing at the time, and you can see a lot of people witnessed it. This is a big crowd, right? And they all saw it, and they all said, oh, I saw it too. Look, the sun was dancing, and oh my God. And the narrative amplifies itself. I saw it too, yes, the emperor is wearing clothes. It's a little bit like that, where collectively, subconsciously, we all agree to have seen something and we all attended this extraordinary event. And as we saw with the Ariel incident in the beginning, in the first few days, it amplifies itself, right? In the beginning, the story is quite mundane, but then it gets more and more extraordinary until the guy comes in 2.5 months later and tickles out telekinetic messages as well. Didn't you know? They also receive telekinetic messages about the environment. So this build of the story is very similar to what we see here. Something happened, they saw something, and it became this huge, extraordinary thing that was obviously then linked to an appearance of the Virgin Mary. And just real quick, what did they saw? The miracle of the sun? I don't know. Obviously, I wasn't there in 1970. It's a bit before my time, but it could have been something like this. This was recorded a few years back in China. It's a very rare, whatever, weather phenomenon, right? Replicates the sun. There are loads of suns in the sky. Happens. Not impossible. It's rare, it's beautiful. If that would have by any chance happened in that moment where they are waiting for the reoccurrence of all the miracles that Mother Mary would present to them, and then you see something like that, and then you think, oh my God, did you see the sun moving? Yes, it was moving, I saw it, and then, did you hear, they saw it moving, I saw, and it becomes a thing, it's a psychological phenomenon, almost a little bit like a viral message, combined with this game where you whisper something in your friend's ear, and then he whispers it forward, and then the seventh person you whisper to, the message has nothing to do with the original message anymore. It amplifies itself. It's a human trait. It is how we operate, and honestly, children operate even more on that level than adults. So there's much more meat to the bone, so to say, when it comes to this story. You could literally do like a 6, 7, 8 hour video just about this incident. There's so much here, but I feel this is a bit of a summary of the overall case and presenting kind of just top line the question marks around it. Now I'm curious to hear what you think. If you made it to this point in the video, then please leave your thoughts on the Ariel School incident underneath. Do you believe it's real? Do the points that I list raise some questions in your mind about the authenticity of it? I'm curious to hear it. Now, before we conclude this video, I promised you in the very, very beginning that we will look at adult witnesses who were children at the time who attended the school and who now speak out saying they saw the same thing. Now, one of these witnesses is, I think it's Francis is the name, who is speaking out. This was shared by UAP Juan. Up here it says podcast UFO. It is also on YouTube. It's been uploaded by a channel called Ariel Phenomenon. Okay, so maybe they interviewed Francis here. So I don't know the context of it. I don't know who owns the footage. I'm sorry about that. But let's listen to what Francis, again, one of the children witnesses at the time who is now an adult, has to say about his experience in 1994.
By account, there were actually 3 beings. 2 of them kind of remained within the line of sight from the playground to the craft. And another one, which is also one of my most vivid memories, was one of the beings actually darting from the craft towards the direction of the swimming pool. The swimming pool, which was probably about 200, 300, 400 meters to the left of the playground. And the most peculiar thing was the way in which it moved, because it almost felt as if it would disappear and appear a few meters ahead of itself.
That is a fascinating report, huh? Listen, I told stories before how I have memories in my head of holidays that I did. Same with my brother, that we later then, when we kind of validated our memories of certain events, it never happened. It never happened. And in my head, I was convinced that's what I saw when I was a kid. I didn't. It wasn't real. But when you're small, when you're young, when you're a child, you're gullible, you're impressionable, you see these things and they can become real in your head, especially when you consider the attention that this case got. Think about it. You see this on Friday. Maybe you didn't really see it. Maybe all your friends saw it. You want to be part of your friend circle in school as well. So you're like, yeah, I saw it too. Okay, so some of these kids were going to claim they saw it. Others saw something. So then they go to their teachers and then they go home. And over the weekend, as we said, there was this program on the radio where they tried to get people to tell their UFO stories. They would have told this to their parents, right? They would have said, we saw this incredible thing at school. So the parents would have reiterated this story as well. You would have talked about it on the weekend with your parents. On top of that, all the big TV stations were there, right? The BBC and others trying to get interviews with these kids. It was in the eye of attention. The school certainly had to get some kind of consent from the parents. So the school would say, hey, we have the BBC and all these people coming to school, talking to your kids about this incredible thing that they saw. Is it okay? So then the parents would talk to their kids again. Be like, oh my God, these big TV stations want to come and interview you. Make sure you wear something nice. Make sure you know what I mean? And it becomes a whole thing where suddenly it seems like the whole world spotlight is on these kids. And here's the camera and the microphone. Okay, the people are here. They all want to hear your story. Go. Right? And you're the kid. Do you see what I mean? How that can put children in a position where they're like, it had a suit. It was silverish. And maybe they saw something. But now it gets amplified, right? Now it's at a point where you heard that other kid said they stood on top of it and one of them was floating and it moved like it was teleporting. It's like, yeah, I heard it moved like it was teleporting. You know what I mean? Like these stories now start to merge with one another. These kids don't even really understand what's going on here. They just probably try to do their best to retell what they saw to an extent, but also to please the adults, right? To please these people with cameras and microphones who want something. Children want to please. So all that plays into it where it's like, dude, I don't know, man. This is all not a good ground to set a credible UFO case on. Obviously, as I said in the beginning, I cannot debunk this case. I can't say, here's the car that they saw. It looks like a UFO and that's why it was the one they saw. We have no images. We have drawings. I can't debunk it. But I think all the arguments and angles that I've presented to you now in this video paint a pretty clear picture to me, at least. Because the ultimate question is, did the Ariel School incident involve aliens? And I think from everything we've heard now, for me at least, the answer is no. Can't definitely tell you what it was, but was it aliens? Probably not. But guys, that's my opinion. That's my observation based on my research. I encourage you to share your thoughts down in the comments underneath. You can completely disagree with me, right? You can say, no, I think it was aliens. Maybe there are points of the story that I didn't address in your opinion. Put those down in the comments as well so we can try to build together a somewhat complete picture of this incident. If you made it to this part of the video, I congratulate you. Thank you so much. Well done. I appreciate it. Smash like if you enjoyed it or if you learned something. Subscribe to the channel for more. I would also love to see you over on our Discord, okay? The link to that is in the description. You just have to click that link while you have Discord installed. It will direct you to our server. It's a great community. I'm hanging out there. Other people hang out there. We discuss anything from video games to politics to UFOs as well. So join the Discord community. Consider becoming a member. There are so many things you can do to support me if you want. I hope to see you soon. Thanks for your time. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm out. Bye.